Good evening, Los Angeles. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice. I am a veteran advocate and an attorney at the Veterans Law Group, and I am the host here this evening where we are spending our time for the next hour talking about all of those things that are affecting veterans and their families, specifically in relation to disability benefits or benefits in general. This show every Tuesday night from 7 to 8 o'clock. Sometimes we're here recorded and we're interviewing some people who are doing wonderful things in the veteran space, and other times like tonight we are live and we are taking your calls. So if you are a veteran out there who is kind of trying to navigate the process, disability claim, or a family member of somebody who's doing that and you've got some questions, we have worked in this industry for about 25 years. It is all we do, helping veterans and their families deal with the VA and all of the bureaucracy and sometimes frustrations of dealing with the VA and how to get the benefits that you're entitled to and you deserve, and what you signed up for and what we agreed as civilians to give you as part of serving your country. So if you have any questions about that and you want to reach out to us, our number here, again, we are live this evening, is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-KABC. As I mentioned before, I am the managing attorney at the Veterans Law Group, and that's what we do. If for some reason you ever want to reach out to us off air, I know sometimes people don't want to talk about their disability claim live on air. You are always welcome to call with an alias. I don't have a problem with that. But if you ever want to reach out to us directly, I set up an email address for us that is Veterans Voice, which is the name of the show, at veteranslaw.com, which is the name of our law firm. Periodically, I have a co-host joining us, and probably the most prominent one lately is Star. She is a U.S. Air Force veteran. She is a paralegal, and she works in this industry alongside me as well. So she has a very unique perspective of helping us, not only because of what she has gone through herself. She knows it from the legal aspect. She knows it from personally going through it. Husband, grandfather, I don't know, you can list all of your family members, all of your accolades here, but she is a U.S. Air Force veteran, and I just want to say hi and welcome, and if you would just take a minute or so just to introduce yourself for anybody who's new here.
Yes, hello. So I served in the Air Force from 2008 to 2012, but I do come from a long line of military personnel. Mostly I married into it. My husband's side of the family, it's all forms of the military. So we have like every branch on his side. And I've basically worked with my grandfather's claim, which was one of the older claims, to the newer claims with my husband's and mine. But I've also worked with my uncles and some of the other different wars. So it's basically a little bit of everything that I've kind of seen with my time here.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's been one of the things that, as I always say, it's the joy of my life to do shows like this to help veteran service organizations and do all that kind of thing. But one of the things I love the most is that most of the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis as part of our team here are veterans themselves or family members of veterans. So you all know firsthand of what our clients are going through, and many of the listeners and callers in that would be going through as well. It's can be an incredibly frustrating process. I try to curb my cynicism a little bit, because I know that people who reach the point that they want to reach out to an attorney, that they're Google searching in the middle of the night frustrated, is usually the times in which the VA does not get it right. And those are the ones that we see. But I also know that there are times that the VA does get it right. And there are some incredibly good people that work at the VA. And there's also people that I would like to strangle and do other things too. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Exactly. It seems like there's minority of good and majority of making it very, very difficult for veterans.
Yeah, and sometimes it's funny because when I do some PR, it's often that there are times where I feel like people ask me, what is it? What is the problem with the VA? Like, what is it? And it's like some of it really is just government bureaucracy, red tape, that kind of thing. Other times it is, the not knowing. It's an education perspective of like the veteran not necessarily knowing what it is that they need to provide to the VA in order to get them what the benefits that are needed. And so, I look at our job as making it easy for the VA to grant benefits and also for the veteran. So trying to stay on good sides of both of those. And one of the best compliments that I ever got was sitting in a hearing with a decision review officer, and he looked at our client and he said, yeah, we like working with them because they make it easy. They give us exactly what we need to grant your claim. And that to me is like one of the biggest compliments that we can get, at least from the VA perspective. So it's all about putting the right ducks in the row and the right timing in order to get things that are, together. You also have, some bad apples. I'm sure you've experienced some of that as well. And in addition to that, just again, going back to the government bureaucracy.
Yes.
So one of the things, again, we're taking your calls live this evening. I generally, when we do live calls like this, I like to pick a topic to talk about, kind of prep a little bit about that. But if you guys have anything, you're listening in and you have anything that you have questions about or just want to talk about just within this military veteran space, feel free to call in. Our number again is 800-222-5222. We'll take your calls based upon this topic or the topic that we're going to talk about or any other questions that you have. One of the interesting things last week, Star wasn't with us, but we had a caller in who, as many of you, and I'm sure including you, Star, got the email from the VA that was this broadcast email about them proposing changes to some of the regulations with regards to how they rate things like tinnitus, sleep apnea, and some mental health. And before we moved on to anything else, I would love, Star, to get your perspective on it. When I see, I'm a lawyer, so when I see proposed regulations, there's part of me that's like, oh, I got to dig into that and see what it's about. There are so many proposed changes that happen within the veteran community. We've been talking about changes to presumptives with regards to like bladder cancer for Agent Orange for 5, 7, 8 years. They finally did it last year, so I don't get too excited about it, but I don't know if you want to speak maybe from a veteran's perspective when you get those emails, kind of what the reaction is. Those are some really important, not presumptives, but disabilities and how they're changing the ratings that would be applied to people of your generation.
Exactly. I think I might be a little bit more jaded than most veterans just because I see this on a daily basis and I see how the VA has constantly changed. Like in the 6 years that I've been doing VA disability appeals with the attorneys as a paralegal, I have seen how they'll offer something and then pull it back right away. So I don't get too excited because I know that a proposal is just a proposal. It doesn't mean they're actually going to do anything about it. But I can see it from the veteran side. Like I know I get calls from my relatives that are like, hey, what about this? Like they just sent this out. So I know that there is an excitement. And I wish the VA would clarify a little bit better when they send that out and state it in a way that veterans understand, like this is just a proposal and it's just the beginning process, and it's not something that is guaranteed at this point.
Sure, and the other thing we were talking about last week is that you also have the opportunity, even as members of the public and veterans, to respond to those. It's open for comments for 60 days for a reason, and you don't have to be a lawyer or a veteran service organization. You can provide your comments and your feedback as well. That's why it's there. That's why those 60 days are there to do that. So I believe we have a couple of callers, and I'm going to start with Ron in Covina. Are you with us, Ron?
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. Go for it.
I'm 50% service-connected disability rated, and I wanted to get an increase based on 3 claims. One was for tinnitus, and one for moderate sleep apnea, and the third for severe osteoarthritis in my right hip. I had 2 questions. One, I'd heard that tinnitus was any service member putting in a claim for tinnitus, it's an automatic 10%. Is that correct?
It maxes at 10%. So there's very few that you'll ever see where they service connect tinnitus, but they give you a 0%. Generally, if they're going to service connect you for tinnitus, they're going to give you the 10%, and that's the max that you can get. So there's not much to go with on that if you got the 10.
Okay. The other question was, I'm scheduled. I've got the osteoarthritis, severe osteoarthritis in my right hip. Now, assuming I put in the claim, and then I'm on the track to get scheduled for surgery. I got to lose some weight first. Now, if I get a hip replacement, what happens to my claim?
If you are service connected for that condition, so if do you already have you already have at least service connection for the arthritis in your right hip?
No.
Okay, so you would need
That's
to get that.
One of the ones I was going to try and get as an additional claim.
Okay, and Star, you can jump in on this too, because I know you've done a lot of the temporary claims, but for something that you're getting a surgery for that is service connected, they will pay you at 100% rate if you are essentially out of being able to work and you need to be on kind of convalescent leave at home for a period of 21 days. They'll pay you at the 100% rate for that 21-day period of time. Two things have to happen for you. One is that you need to get it service connected, and two, you need to apply for that temporary 100%. So if you file now, and maybe it takes you 6 months to get it service connected, but they service connect it, and you've shown that you've been in surgery, then during that period of time, they'll pay you the 100%, and then you'll go back to whatever percentage that they give you. So there's a couple of moving parts there that you need to. And Star, you've done a number of 100%ers here if you want to chime in.
So I would like to just point out that it has to be requested prior to the surgery. So if you were to request that after you have the surgery, then they're more likely to come back and not give you the 100% for the surgery. So even if you get the claim in prior to the surgery, you can still request that claim at the same time as the 100%. So you're requesting the service connection, and then you're requesting the surgery time at the same time, but you don't put in for the 100% until after the surgery has occurred. So it's recommended to put in for the claim and wait for that decision. But in the meantime, if you're waiting for that decision, put in the new claim for the surgery as soon as the surgery happens. But you need to have the post-op report from your doctor that states you're down for such and such time. So usually, like a hip disorder, I know when I had mine, because I have surgery that I had on my hip for a screw placement, I was down for at least 1 month. It was 30 days, and that's including physical therapy. So just make sure to put that paperwork from your doctor that includes how long and with the physical therapy with the new claim when you do it for the surgery as well.
Yeah, and we're coming up against a break here, but I'll just clarify. You can certainly put in for it beforehand, but they are going to need those post-op surgery notes with the doctor's notes about how long you're going to be out of commission. So all of that is important, but you can start right away with the initial claim to get the service connection done, or at least started as part of the process, because you got a two-pronged thing going on there.
Right. So if I wanted your law firm to handle that for me, how would I get started?
You would definitely reach out to our office. We only handle appeals. There's a statutory requirement that nobody can actually charge a veteran for filing a claim. But you can certainly reach out to our office at the 888-811-0523 is our direct line number, and our team, Star might be somebody that you talk to, would help you to kind of get the process started and point you in the right direction. We'll be right back. This is Amanda with the Veterans Voice talking all about VA benefits this evening. This is Amanda Manier. I am your host here this evening with the Veterans Voice. We join you every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 o'clock, sometimes recorded. This evening we are live and taking your calls live. This show is all about highlighting and celebrating veterans and their families, providing just some recent news of things that are affecting veterans and how, our, kind of suggestion on how that can help you and your family. And we've been working within the VA disability benefits for 25 years as attorneys, so got quite a bit of experience, and so I'd love to answer your questions as veterans or family members of veterans about kind of what's going on in this field, specifically with VA disability benefits, navigating that process, dealing with the bureaucracy and some of the frustration. And we were talking before the break, some of the, with Ron and Covina, some of the things related to, opening up new claims and getting kind of the process started, especially if you've got an upcoming surgery that would be on a potentially service-connected disability, so a hip surgery in that specific circumstance that we're talking about. We're also joined this evening by Star. She is a paralegal in our office and a U.S. Air Force veteran. She's also super helpful when it comes to some of the nuances of dealing with the VA, specifically related to things like filing for 100%. Because we can talk, there's definitely very specific answers about, okay, this is what the regulation says or what the VA says of how you should file something. And then our experience of well, actually the better way of going about it is X, Y, and Z. So we were talking a little bit before we went to break of, you can certainly file a service-connected condition before you go in for surgery, but the VA isn't going to really do anything on it until you have those post-op surgery notes that indicate that you need at least 21 days out in, basically convalescent care, that you're getting support and needing somebody to actually help along with that. So I hope that, Ron, we answered your question. I think there was something else on sleep apnea. I don't know if Ron is still on with us that we want to address sleep apnea, or if we should move on to the next caller. Ron, are you still with us? Okay, so Ron moved on. Ron, if you have a question about that sleep apnea, it is a very common question. I'd be happy to address some of those things. In actually some of our previous shows, we've spoken specifically to sleep apnea, some of the ways that you can get service connected. Not only direct service connection if you've had some symptoms in service, but also there's a lot of buzz out there of how do you get service connected secondary to PTSD? There was a lot of influx of claims that were secondary to PTSD, and the VA kind of did their little weird freak out about it and denied a whole bunch of claims. And then there's ways in which you can get that happening. So if that's something that Ron, that you're interested in, I did give you our number to our office, and our team here can help you with that, or you can call back in. I would like to take another call. We have Bessie in Lawndale. Is Bessie with us?
I am. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. What can I do for you this evening?
Well, so I'm a Navy veteran, and I did the process myself to apply for service-connected benefits. I don't even recall because I got out in 98. But then I tried to appeal about 8 years ago out of one of the side offices in Gardena, California. And at that time, I was told to omit certain things if it was going to lead to mental health or anything related to anything that might have happened traumatic as a female. And so I was only told to put in my fibromyalgia. And I was, so they said it gets too complicated and messy, so leave it out. So I did, and I only did the fibromyalgia, and I was given 0%. Later on, a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I found my medical records. I was a medical corpsman, so attached to the Marines, and I couldn't remember, and I guess I kept my medical records. They kept part of it, and so at that time, it was on a CD, but they don't have my complete medical record. So there's two things. One is the things that I omitted because I was asked to when I did that appeal. And number two, I have the rest of the medical records that they don't have access to. So I'm wondering, since I appealed once, can I reappeal or?
Yeah, it would be putting in a new claim. It would be starting your claim over again. So yes, you can certainly do that. With anything that is, when you originally, you said that when they told you not to put in the mental health stuff, did you put it in initially but you didn't appeal it, or you didn't put it in to begin with at all?
I never initialed it because I was embarrassed to, and I didn't know how it was going to affect me. I was freshly out of the military, and I was scared and nervous to put it because I didn't know how that would affect me applying for jobs later on.
Sure. You were definitely not alone in that. That is something, especially during that time period, that was advised in those ways in which, me working in this industry as I have, as long as I have it, it gets really frustrating. So a couple of things. One is that, yes, you can always reapply or apply for the mental health. There is no time limit on when you can do that. Like I'm working with claims that are people who are dealing with PTSD from Vietnam, and they were, never told or never encouraged or didn't even know that they had PTSD, didn't know what it was. It wasn't something that was very common. Another thing that is very, sensitive and often sensitive, and I don't know if this is a situation, but
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was so anxiety, depression, if it's a military sexual trauma case, that falls under PTSD. There's no time limit really on any disability on filing for a claim. There's just ways in which you can navigate that, and that's what a lot of our office works with you on. Again, we can't help you file the initial claim, unfortunately. I can certainly connect you with somebody in the Los Angeles County area or somebody in that area to help you file the claim. Or if you just want to reach out to our office, especially if it's an MST claim, want to reach out to our office, we can certainly help you with how to approach the subject.
Okay.
And then, and again, I'll be honest with you, I have a particular heart for people who are struggling, sounds like you are, it's the VA, that discouragement that's, you don't, if you file this claim, it's going to be disparaging on you in the civilian world. And I just feel like that's just so wrong.
It is. There's very little help for female support out there. I've gone to numerous fairs for veterans. And I've even met the picture takers for, especially here in California, for the councilwoman and this and that, and we're helping the veterans, and yet I call and there's very little support at all, especially for female veterans. So that's out there.
A couple of things. What I would tell you, so is I don't want to necessarily dig into your personal claim right now on publicly, but if you contact our office, like I said, Star, who's one of the paralegals here, is on the call here with us. Karen is the other person that you might talk to. Both of them are very familiar. If we can't take your case on right away, we can definitely kind of help you, hold your hand kind of through the process of getting things started.
I would love that.
Yeah, so reach out to our office. Our number is 888-811-0523, but probably the easiest way is to go to our website, which is veteranslaw.com, and it's veterans with an S, veteranslaw.com, and there's a button that says, see if we can help you, and it'll take you to a consultation form that you fill it out and request a consultation, and you'll get set up with a call between either Star or Karen. And if you specifically ask for Star in the write-up, she's listening to this call right now, so she'll be able to talk with you and kind of just help you not only get started, but kind of some of the things that we've learned over the years of working with a lot of cases that sound like very similar to yours. Certainly.
And I found you online, and I'll definitely be filling out that form and requesting Star. Thank you so much. This is such an amazing program you have.
Thank you.
So glad I turned it on. Thank you so much.
All right, Star, you want to jump in here before she drops off?
Yes. So I did just want to bring up one thing, how Amanda had said, you're not alone. We see a lot of these. And just to get information out there for other veterans that are listening right now, you don't have to apply for just PTSD. Even if you're diagnosed with PTSD, a lot of veterans feel like, there's a stigmatism that comes along with that. They might take away certain things from me. So you don't always have to apply just for PTSD if that's what you've been diagnosed with. If you have those underlying conditions of anxiety or depression that fall under PTSD, you can always apply for that if you don't want to apply for the flat-out PTSD. So there are, ways of, instead of, how they kind of kept you from putting in something because they were like, this isn't how you want to go with it because of certain jobs or things like that. I just want veterans to know, you can always apply for the smaller, less, held stigma, I guess.
And the VA, and the VA will still get you where you need to go, especially if you work with an office like this. We were up against a hard break here, so we need to move on. Bessie, thank you so much for calling in, and please reach out to our office. We can definitely help you with that process. You all are listening to The Veteran's Voice. I'm your host here this evening, Amanda Manier, here with co-host Star Brewer, and we'll be right back here in a moment, along with Dallas, as you can hear us, who is our always constant co-host, our service dog here in the office. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice here on 790 KABC. We are here talking this evening about all things related to veterans, specifically their veterans benefits, but those things that are affecting veterans. We're live this evening and taking your calls live. If you've got any questions that are related to veterans claims or just want to talk about those things that are affecting veterans. I know there's a lot going on in the news right now that kind of stirs up the military community and the veteran community, things going on in Eastern Europe, and well, there's just a lot of joyful things going on in the world. I definitely try not to get too much into political discussion, but I would welcome this to be a place where you guys can call in and kind of share your thoughts. So you're welcome to reach out to us about that. Our expertise here is veteran benefits, so I'm kind of going to try to redirect it to that place. But our contact number here is 800-222-5222. We're here every Tuesday night between 7 and 8 o'clock. Periodically, we do join you guys on Monday or Wednesday nights as well. So if you're listening in and want to tune in on a Monday or Wednesday night, especially if there's a USC game going on, we'll be there. But again, our number here is 800-222-5222. We were talking this evening a little bit about a couple of things. We were talking about some things related to mental health claims, and sometimes in the early 90s and even prior to that, there was a little bit of discouragement, especially early on, in the Vietnam veterans and some of the people that Star and I have worked with. I'm joined here this evening with Star as my co-host. She is a paralegal and a U.S. Air Force veteran, has walked through this process with herself, her family, and many of our clients. We were talking before we went to the break with somebody who was discouraged from filing claims related to mental health, and I didn't get in too much of it, but if that was related to whether it was PTSD, anxiety, if it was related to a military sexual trauma, what is often called as MST, for the civilians of the world, it really is just a sexual assault, or but they qualify that under military, and it happens way more often than we would like to even admit or talk about, but I have a particular heart for it, as I know Star does as well, for people who've been going through that. So if you're listening in and you've heard the call before, or you are listening in just now and have kind of experienced that or want some way to do it, our office works in VA disability appeals, which means generally you have to have a decision already with the VA in order for us to take you on as a client. But I have given the green light to everybody in my office who answers the phone here that to help veterans that are calling in specifically related to these issues, but in all issues, to at least point them in the right direction, or to kind of just help them with that. Even if we can't take you on as a client at this time, we can certainly help you. I know a lot of veteran service officers all throughout the country. I've worked with training many of them, and I can generally point you to somebody who'd be able to help. So, Star, welcome back. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if you wanted to chime in on that subject before we move on to something else. I'll give you a couple minutes.
I wanted just to kind of reiterate that, I understand that the mental disorders are very, very hard for veterans. It's been hard for a lot of veterans that I have known personally. And I just want to put the word out there that, to get that help, to have that benefit is very, very important. And things have changed. So it's
Definitely.
never too late to put in a claim. Like, always put in a claim. And there's, somebody out there that will be able to help you with it. So just, try to get the paperwork together from when you are diagnosed and get that submitted to the VA, no matter what type of mental disability it might be.
Yeah, and even if you haven't been diagnosed, there are,
Yeah.
that I have, you've worked with me for about 6 years. That I have the handful, if not more, armful at this point of time of my quote unquote favorite clients. And, many of them, or some of them, one particular I'm thinking about was a Vietnam veteran, him and his wife, Southern couple, lived in South Carolina, just the sweetest two people that could possibly be, but he struggled when he got back from Vietnam, and she stuck by him, and they loved each other, but it was hard. And it wasn't until, and she never wanted to say anything bad about him. He was always a good father and a good husband, but he struggled very, very much he was drafted into Vietnam, and wasn't something that he signed up for, and saw some really hard things. And so, helping them through that process. They were told when they got home to keep your mouth shut, don't tell anybody you were in Vietnam. So not only was PTSD not something we commonly talked about, but even Vietnam veterans coming home were not people who were like welcomed home as heroes. And so he had spent, 20, 30 years of his life that he just never knew what to do with all of that. And when he found out what to do with it, it was an Army reunion that he went to. And he talked with some of his, buddies that he had been overseas with and been in Vietnam with, and they helped him with, I got help and you should get help. And so he finally reached out to help. And then initially the VA denied him, because they didn't deny him. They underrated him. They granted his PTSD, but they underrated him. And it took a while, and it took a little bit of, influence by me and his wife and working with them for him to be truly honest with the VA about how bad it is. And again, you were talking about a little bit of a stigma, and like there's that honor and that pride that it's hard to admit that you need that kind of help, but this is what the VA is for. It was part of what we agreed to do to help you. And I feel, especially for those who got drafted, it wasn't something that they signed up for and initially, expected to do with their lives. So, I believe we have a caller, Leslie in Huntington Beach. Do you want to join us? Leslie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Hi. My dad is a World War II vet, and I'm blessed that he's still got his mind, and he's doing great, and he's going to be 97 next month. But
Wow.
our question is, back in March of 2019, my dad and I went to a Veterans Administration office where he was checked for hearing. Well, actually, not for hearing. We went there to see what we could do for his hearing. And the man said, oh, yeah, you can do this and all that. Well, then the pandemic hit, and then unfortunately, it was kind of shelved. And then we got the local official, the government official, to help us. And then they wanted us to redo all the paperwork, and we sent that in. And finally, in the early part of February, we went to go and do a hearing test at an area here locally, and yes, it was determined his hearing was bad. So we were thinking, okay, great, finally he'll get some hearing aids. But today we received a check from the Treasury for compensation, which is wonderful, but we're confused. There was no letter with it or what. Is this something he'll be getting now?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, it's one of these really bizarre things that happens with the VA is it takes forever for them to do anything except issue payment. That seems to come. I can't tell you how often I get calls from veterans who get a deposit into their account or a check, and they don't know what it's for because they haven't actually gotten the decision in the mail. And so it's really bizarre. So I would say that you probably would expect to get what's called a rating decision from the VA. I would say give it 1 to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, because there's been some mail issues lately. And it'll tell you what that is for. And generally it'll be, okay, we've service connected his hearing and we've given him a certain percentage. So whatever he's getting paid for, like the three elements to a service-connected decision that you're getting compensated for is you had some sort of injury in service, you have a current disability. So it looks like they're looking at, okay, he has a current disability of a hearing that they do believe is related to or started in service. And then they give them a percentage, a 10, 20, 30, whatever percentage. And then they'll issue you a payment for that from the time that you've initially. So if you went in March of 2019, it probably goes back to that date. And then he will get from there forward a check every month for whatever that percentage is. So it's a little...
the check on the... Oh, I'm sorry. On the check bottom, it just said from like December 1st, 21 to January 31st, 22.
Okay. And what can you tell me what the dollar amount was? Just ballpark? Just curious.
Yeah, $6,272.
Okay, so it sounds like they probably rated him maybe around a 10% going back to that March date. Or if it's just for the last couple of months, then when you get the decision, you have to look at if all they did, say they rated him at like a 60%, which is a pretty significant hearing loss, and that's only for the last couple months, then you gotta, then that's an appeal right there that they should have rated that back to March of 2019 if that's when his claim was put in. So when you get that decision, that would be something that, like, I'll just tell you straight out, if you get the decision and they have only rated him as of a couple of months ago, that's certainly something to contact our office about, and we'll help you sort that out, because it sounds like either they rated him like a 10% for the last couple of years, and that's why you got that lump sum, or they messed up the rating. Because one of the things I wanted to talk about this evening was effective dates, and if we, get off of this call in our last segment, I'm going to address that. So if you're able to listen in, I'm going to address some issues with effective dates that the VA does that crap all the time, for lack of a better word that I can't say on the radio, that they misestablish an effective date, and a veteran gets something and they're like, oh wow, I got a check for $6,000, that's awesome, I didn't expect that, and they just move on. And I step back and look at that and I'm like, they're cheating you out of 2.5 years of disability. So that's part of my job, is to make sure that you get what your dad gets, what he's supposed to get.
Right, and I'm angry because it's been going on for 3 years now, and I've had to go through all the hoops to keep doing this, and then it's like they throw, like you said, the check ad, but we don't know what it's for, and there's no hearing aid, so what's the diff?
Yeah, exactly. And we're about to go up to break, but Leslie, if you can stay on a little bit, or you don't have to stay on, you can hang up, but if you listen in a little bit, I'm going to address some effective date thing that might help shed some light on what you're going through. But once he's service connected, he can then get coverage for those hearing aids. So that this might be step one in the rest of your process.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for also doing the show, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Leslie. We will be right back. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice on 790 KABC. Thank you, Star, for joining us. This is Amanda Manier, your host here at the Veterans Voice. We are all here talking about veterans benefits and just things related to veterans that are affecting everybody, all of the veterans and their families right now. We've worked within about 25 years of working with veterans and their families, helping them navigate the process. This evening, we are taking our calls live. If you'd like to reach out to us at 800-222-5222. I know we've had the phones backed up a little bit this evening, but I understand Mel, one of our favorite callers, is on. Mel, are you with us?
Hey, thank you for being on again.
Oh, absolutely. How are you this evening?
I'm okay. Sadly, I was so tired. I missed your show last week, and you were talking about great stuff.
Ah, I'm sorry.
Hope I can get a copy somewhere. But you mentioned two things I thought were really important for all of us to write to our House misrepresentatives, and that was the VA benefits bill. And what is there a bill number associated with that?
Are you talking about the proposed regulations?
Yes.
Yeah, it isn't a bill in the House of Congress. This is in a regulatory, so it's within the VA, and it's regulations that are being published for commentary under the Federal Register. And so it's not a bill to contact Congress about. It's a point in which you can respond to the proposed benefits, and if you need those, you can certainly reach out to us, and we'll give you the link for that. But it's broadcast all over the place right now. It got a blast email last Tuesday, which lit up our office and our radio show last week.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for what you're doing for us. I had a hard time providing feedback to the VA because I talked to an officer who just didn't really seem to care about the veterans or the homeless issue for veterans. I got a kind of like, I'm really too busy to talk to you about this. I've got to go feed my cat type attitude.
And what do you mean an officer? What kind of officer?
Well, I was the head of one of the VA facilities. I don't want to get anybody impugned here, but it was the downtown VA.
Okay.
On Temple and Alameda.
Sure. I'm always, when people say that they go into the VA and they ask questions, there is a lot of organizations that have offices within the VA. I know down in San Diego, you go on the first floor of the VA, and if you go to the left, you get the VA compensation office. If you go past the elevators, you get DAV, VFW, County Veteran Service Officers, Wounded Warriors. So a lot of times people get confused as to who they're talking to, and
Okay. No, this was the head. This was the head of the VA there, the new head. And I got sort of I don't really care much attitude. She didn't say that, but it was very, very obvious in the voice and the lack of response. And I sometimes really don't know what to do. We've had good veteran. I don't know what the right term for it is, but anyway, people who represent the VA in the past, but it's changed that, and I'm trying to also get you to meet this guy that helps the veterans out at the West LA facility, and he's actually been arrested for putting an American flag on the American fence to bring attention to the veterans he has personally bought tents and sleeping bags for. And
yeah, there has been a lot of goings on up there in Los Angeles with regards to the homeless population, and like I said earlier in the show, it's like I try not to get too caught up in the political sphere of what's going on, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that people are taken care of and getting what they're entitled to be getting, and in whatever we can help them. So sometimes it's not a government answer to the problem. It's more of the government needs to get out of the way and let some of the local nonprofits help with what's going on, the people who actually understand.
Right. You're so right. And I thank you for what you and Star are doing. I've talked with her real briefly also, and it's up to us who are veterans to try to use whatever experience we have to try to guide other people in positions that maybe they don't know what's happening. Sadly, there's a lot of people who are not veterans who work there, so they don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, it's funny you say that, because I can almost predict at times when I'm working with the VA, those who are veterans and those who are not. And even on top of that, Star, you would probably join me in this. You also know some that are non-combat veterans versus combat veterans and how the way that they treat clients. Star, I'll let you jump in here. And Mel, thank you so much for calling. I'm going to let you drop off. I'm going to let Star say something, and then I want to address the effective date issue that I mentioned to our caller previously to going to break.
I did just want to say, Mel, I did get your message, and I will send you some more information and give you a call back with the information that you're looking for, okay?
Yeah, I think he dropped off after that. So
okay.
What I want to do is, it's something that is like, I have plenty to go in on a future show with this, but I want to touch on it briefly because it's something that we're seeing over and over again, and it's one of those things that gets under my skin about the VA, copping out. I want to say copping out or punting or whatever we want to call it, and that it's the effective date issue. So for those of you who are listening that maybe don't understand the VA stuff or are new to it, it's when you get rated for something with the VA, it's a first important thing is getting service connected. So they're saying this disability that you have is related to your service. The second thing is the evaluation, what percentage they give you for that particular disability, which affects your overall disability, which relates to how much you get paid per month. And the third thing is the effective date of that percentage. And so generally, the easiest answer to an effective date is it's effective the day that you file your claim. So if I served from 1992 to 1996, I filed a claim last year in 2001 for a psychological, depression, PTSD, and I got rated, say 30% for that. That 30% is going to be dated or effective the date that I filed that claim. And why that's important is because that's the date I start getting paid my compensation for it. What happens with the VA is that they mess up those effective dates all the time. So especially in the appeals. So for example, Star, if you filed a claim in 2020, January of 2020, and we had somebody on here recently, or it was a Bessie, was talking about the waiting through COVID to get an examination. So here's one of the big mistakes that the VA makes. You file a claim in January of 2020. Because of COVID, you don't get actually examined for that disability until August of 2021 or 2022. And the VA says, okay, we have a diagnosis for you in August of 2022, and you have a 10%, and we're giving it to you based upon the date of your diagnosis. And a lot of veterans will then take that and say, oh, okay, I got that disability connected. And my lawyer brain is going off going, you filed that claim in January of 2020. And the reason why you filed is because you were having that disability at that time. So there are ways in which the VA will mess up those effective dates. And one of the biggest is that they give the effective date as of the date of an examination. It happens most often with an increase, where you file for an increase and you wait for a year or 2 years or whatever to get that examination, then they give it to you based upon that examination date. And that's a complete misapplication of the law. It's not the date in which the VA received the medical evidence. It's the date in which the medical evidence says that you had that disability. So if you're going into your doctor or to that CNP examination and they're asking you about your symptoms, be sure to tell them that your symptoms have been there since X date. Give it a ballpark. And so the evidence in the medical record says it's as of this date, and then they're supposed to, and the VA will screw it up. I promise you, they'll screw it up a lot of times. And that's why we're here to help, is that they'll what I call cheat you out of 2.5 years of disability benefits. And so effective dates are something, and I'm gonna do a little bit more of an extensive call or a recording or maybe a YouTube video. We do have a YouTube channel that I want to get into that, because I always look at it as the VA is cheating you out of that earlier effective date. They're copping out, they're punting, they are making it easy for themselves in order to do that. And I could get into a lot of this, and Star, I know you want to chime in, but we're up against a hard deadline. And I just want to tell everybody, thank you so much this evening for reaching out to us, for calling, for asking the questions. If you have any further questions and you want to reach out to us directly throughout the week, veteranslaw.com, or you can find us through Veterans Law Group on all of social media, or send us an email at veteransvoice@veteranslaw.com. We will see you next week. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service.